As a guy on a show called Let's Talk Bitcoin, it comes as no surprise I think Bitcoin is the bee's knees so far as digital currency options are concerned. Recently, I sat on a panel at the C2SV, the Converge Create Silicon Valley conference, and one of the other experts on the panel was Chris Larson of Ripple Labs. He said a couple of things that I disagree with. First, that Ripple is Bitcoin 2.0. That's a bit of an odd thing to say. And second, that if you can get law enforcement on the side of your currency, you'll have won. For those of you not familiar with the Ripple system, it can be thought of as a parallel development to Bitcoin that tries to solve many of the same problems. Bankless money transmission to anywhere in the internet-connected world. Ripple goes about solving the problem slightly differently. There are no miners. Transaction validity is determined by a cascading consensus engine. Ripples themselves, XRP, were fully pre-mined and initially owned by Ripple Labs. They aren't really traded as currency themselves, so this isn't as much of an issue. Instead, they're intended as an anti-spam mechanism, like a stamp on an envelope with a check inside. This piece was published on Let's Talk Bitcoin the day before I recorded this to release on the show, and one of the early comments pointed out that the Ripple project has actually been under development since about 2004. And if you go back to that 2004 page, then right there on the front of it, it says, "We want to make your promises as good as a bank's promises," because essentially that's what they're saying, is that when a bank extends credit, they're extending a promise to pay. In the Ripple thought process, the thing is, okay, well, if we have the infrastructure to issue these credits just amongst people, then why do we need the banks in order to facilitate that same sort of transaction? Ripple ultimately looks like it was designed to maintain the functionality of the banking system while removing the banking system itself from the equation. So they're both trying to solve this problem, but it really is kind of fundamentally at odds how they're trying to do it. Bitcoin does it through an ownership person-to-person based system, and Ripple is built on interconnected network of P2P credit. Bitcoins are wholly owned with no risk of the redeeming party defaulting, but with Ripple, that is a risk. The Bitcoin system transfers ownership of one thing, Bitcoins. People can build layers on top of it to do other things, but at a protocol level, it's just Bitcoins on the Bitcoin network. But what if you don't want to send Bitcoins? This is where Ripple is really a good option. When you send US dollars through the Ripple system, you're really sending IOUs that can be redeemed somewhere else in the system. Depending on your need to transact in non-Bitcoin terms, this might be important. Or you might prefer the wholly owned nature of cryptocurrency. And this is getting to be an interesting thing. As we move towards a more pervasive Bitcoin future, we're starting to see a Bitcoin ecosystem develop where you really can get all of your needs met without ever touching a currency besides a cryptocurrency. And right now, this is more true for Bitcoin, but I think that as we move forward, we're going to see these infrastructures develop where the cryptocurrency particulars don't matter. And it's just cryptocurrency is accepted here, and whichever one you happen to use, there's an exchange rate based on that, based on this market mechanism. Now, I don't think it's fair to say that Ripple is Bitcoin 2.0. I really think it's more like a parallel evolution that brings its own strengths and weaknesses to the table. It better fits the needs of some, and it's worse for others. But there's no question that if Ripple had matured before Bitcoin came into use, we'd be having a really similar conversation, and it would be just as wrong to have called Bitcoin Ripple 2.0. One of the liabilities that Ripple has all to itself is a corporate structure. They make the argument, as will Invictus Innovations when they launched the BitShares protocol, that just because a company designs, creates, and releases a protocol into the wild doesn't imbue them with any responsibility for any disruptions that protocol might cause. Satoshi didn't disappear because of all the appreciation that was sure to be showered upon him. Rather, the risks of standing alongside such a disruptive thing was sure to generate a bad outcome. Maybe not for Satoshi, but somebody loses in that scenario because there are entities and individuals to whom pressure can be applied. It's tempting to want law enforcement on our side. They're scary folks doing a difficult job. I used to have an unreasonable amount of respect and awe for the people who apply our justice system, but over the last few years, experience finds that diminished. I see more arrests for petty crimes and no enforcement of the law where the most egregious violations have taken place. Finance. Ultimately, there isn't much question here. In Bitcoin, barring a registration process that sees public keys issued to specific names, I don't see how you tell the signal from the noise on anything but specific cases. In Ripple, I don't know, but I'm pretty curious. It's also not surprising that Ripple Labs takes this approach. What choice do they have? If they're seen as aiding or enabling illegal activities, they have facilities that can be raided, assets that can be seized. Look at how law enforcement deals with media piracy. Anything a payment network would be guilty of is, of course, worse. We live in strange times, but some things are so powerful and dangerous that to sign your name to them is tantamount to suicide. Maybe not for you, but for the goals of the project. No reason why a pressured company has to die if instead they comply. With money, the issues are always permission, not technology.
Hi, this is Jason King, founder at Sean's Outpost, and you are listening to Let's Talk Bitcoin. Sean's Outpost is a homeless outreach in Pensacola, Florida, and we are proudly powered by Bitcoin. To date, over 13,000 meals have been fed to the homeless in our area, all purchased with Bitcoin and through the generosity of the cryptocurrency community. Read more about us at seansoutpost.com. Food, shelter, Bitcoin, everybody. Sean'sOutpost.com.